Hi and welcome to The Practice Gap, the podcast for closing the gap between the practice you have and the one that you want. I'm Elizabeth, a chiropractor, a business owner, coach and entrepreneur, on a mission to help you move from frustration and overwhelm to clarity, focus and joy in practice. 3, 2, 1, yeah. Hi and welcome to this third season of The Practice Gap. I'm super happy to be back for this next season, and we are going to start out talking about change. For this episode, I've invited back Inge-Beate Botheim to the studio. Could you refresh the audience a little bit? Who are you?
Oh my God, yeah, I can, and thank you for inviting me back. I really had such a fun time with you the last 2 episodes, so let's hope this one also brings us fun and joy. I'm a woman living in Oslo. I work full-time as a leadership and executive coach, and change is kind of in the middle of everything I do. Also in my personal life, I have 3 teenagers in my house, and of course that also causes a lot of changes for us as parents and for us as a family. So the topic for today, I think, is very interesting in many, many ways.
Mm-hmm. We are going to talk about a concept that's called immunity to change. It addresses why it's so difficult for so many people to change, and also something to do about it. If you could start by telling the audience a little bit, what is immunity to change and how does it differ from other forms of resistance to change?
This framework, immunity to change, is developed by 2 psychologists at Harvard called Robert Kegan and Lahey, and they have been studying adult development for many, many years, many decades. And they say actually that what we're saying, that change is so hard, they say that's not even half the truth. They say
it's even harder.
It's even harder, but what they say is that it's not that we fear the change, because many people say that change is so uncomfortable, but it is because we don't know what to do with the anxiety that arises when change is ahead. And they often use the example that, let's say you win the lottery tomorrow, or something very, very fun happens to you, something that's great, that's change, and you wouldn't think it's hard. So it's more that we get anxious and don't know what to do when we face changes that we perceive as dangerous.
Okay, so it's not the change itself, it's the danger I perceive with the change.
Yes.
So if I win $1 million, it's going to be super easy to change.
Probably, yeah.
But if I want to change career, it's going to be crazy difficult.
Yes. So they developed this framework because what they say, and I find that to be very true in my work as a coach, often the only change model we have or have learned is that it's all comes down to willpower.
If I just want it enough, I can do anything.
Right. And then on the other hand, if you're not able to do the change, it must be that you don't really want it enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that we talked about shame in one of the previous episodes, and I think also this, when we're not able to implement the changes that we really want and that we know will give us something we really long for and aspire for, that often leaves us shameful. Because if I don't want it enough, like having a healthy body, to exercise more, or whatever my New Year's resolution might be, if I don't want it enough, I must be lazy or stupid or something. And
because you don't have enough willpower to change.
Right, yeah. And I think the research of Kegan and Lahey really, really shows that change model is not sufficient for us to really transform and evolve as human beings and adopt the changes that we long for.
So what do they bring to the table?
So what they bring to the table is that they created something they call the immunity map. So it's a framework and a model for you to go through step by step to be able to see what's really holding you back. So you could say that your goals, the change you want for yourself or maybe for your team if you're a leader, that's the gas. right? You really want that. That's a foot on the gas, and you really want to go forward and implement this change. You also have a lot of hidden and competing commitments, strategies to self-protect from what you perceived maybe before from your experience to be dangerous. They're often more hidden for our conscious brain. That's the brake. And everybody who's driven a car, if you have one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas, you will stand still. You will feel stuck.
Mm-hmm. So how can I use it? If I have a team, how can I use it?
I think this model, what I really love about it, it is applicable both for yourself at the workplace or private. It's also applicable for teams. And you can use it like every individual in the team can use it for whatever they struggle with, and you can have like a joint conversation about what everybody is contributing to the team and not. Or you can have like a goal for the team, something a team want to achieve, and you might have been unsuccessful so far. Maybe you tried, and then it's all the little changes. It's like, I tried that a million times, it never works anyway. Let's not just do something else. Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, how can you start to identify your own immunity to change?
That's what we're going to do, using you an example. Yeah. But you should know that now, that when you invite me, I will coach you for all your audience to listen. So what I thought would be fun is that they have created this immunity map. And that's actually a sheet of paper with 4 columns. And we have provided that for our listeners. So if they want to do the same that I'm gonna drag you through today, they can pause the episode and they could go and find this immunity map and download it. And where will they find it?
They will find it in the notes, also on the webpage to the podcast, the Practice Gap, or for the Norwegians out there, praksisliv.no. But before we start, could you start by giving me and the audience an example when you have used immunity change yourself in your own life with your own struggles?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I've used it many times for myself. And it's every time I use it, I get kind of struck by how much we don't know about ourselves. Because I'm a coach. I do personal work for others and for myself, like all the times for many years. And still, when I use this model, I get more data of what I'm doing and what I'm not doing and what's holding me back. And I think one time I used it for like a year ago. I worked in a very big project and I worked way too much. And I found myself struggling with telling the client that I worked for that I needed to cut back, because I saw I worked like in evenings, and on Fridays, I often used to have Fridays off. I worked in the weekend, and that's not something that I want. I want balance, work-life balance. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to be present with my kids. And then I used this model, and I will not go through all the process in my case, but what I found is that the reason that I couldn't tell the client that it was too much was because I had a hidden commitment that was competing with this work-life balance, that I should be able to do everything they put on me. I should be like self-sufficient. I was a person that always need to say yes, not to say no. So my hidden commitment was that I was so worried, if I said this is too much for me, the reply from the client would be, then we have to let you go. Right? Yeah. And the funny thing is, because I worked with myself and with this immunity change for many, many weeks. And when I finally saw this hidden commitment, that it was living in me, that I was committed to do everything they put on me instead of having work-life balance, I thought that I need to test this assumption out. Will they let me go if I tell them that this is too much? And I was at a meeting with this client, and just in the break, I just all of a sudden just said, the last few months have been very heavy work-wise. It's too much for me. I have to cut back and not work that much. And then the client just said, okay, great. And then he just went on eating his lunch. And I was like, I think that's a perfect example of the story that I was telling myself, making up in my mind who I needed to be in order to provide value to this client. But that was just not true.
Good example. Good example. Well,
so now over to you.
So
that's my favorite part of these episodes.
All right.
So I will ask you.
Well, I was challenged by Inge-Beate in the beginning of the show, just before we started, to find a problem. And then, but you were quite specific about what kind of problem you wanted me to find. Not the exact, but what type. Could you explain to the audience a little bit before, because that might be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's, thank you for reminding me of doing that. I think that's really important, because there's many changes we face in our lives. And often some of the changes are more like technical, and I use that term just to describe that there is a change, you know how to do it. Many other people might have been doing it, and maybe you even...
would that be like learning how to use the podcast, technical stuff?
Great example. So it it might be hard for you to learn it, if you're not that technically gifted, but it's more like it's doable. You don't have to go like a big personal change in order to learn.
You actually just have to figure out who's going to teach you to put in time on.
Yeah.
It's just
with
kind
a
of
manual.
Structure. Yeah, with a manual.
Right. Yeah. So that you call technical issues. But we have all other challenges. It might be, instead, if we go along with the metaphor of the podcast equipment, not the technical like recording and everything and putting it online, but why it's hard for some guests to show up in your podcast, right? Why do they postpone? Why don't they come? What are their worries, in behind there? So
everyone, the people I ask is like, yeah, I would love to be on your show. And it's like, oh, it's never a good time. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it in a couple of months. Right. I would love to do it. And I can't wait. I'm super excited. But let's just not do it now.
Yeah, and I think what we are looking for here is to find challenges you have and changes you want to make that might be something that you've been thinking about for a while. Maybe you tried something, maybe using this willpower method, and maybe you've been like to the gym for a couple of weeks in January, but not like for the whole year. So it's changes that you can't just read a manual how you have to do, how you should do it. You feel stuck, you have no idea why you can't implement or do this change for yourself. That's the changes we are looking for. So on that note, and with my challenge for you to try to find what we call these more adaptive personal development changes, what did you find?
Okay, I found something that I've been working with for a really long time, and I have had a little pause with kind of everything extraordinary, and I started again couple of days ago. And so the thing is, I made this online onboarding system for new therapists, all really what you need the first year to get on moving with your practice, all the like how to make it easy and simple from all the experience I have with all the different people I worked with for the last 30 years. And I have so much material.
I can imagine.
And every time I open like the documents I've been working, that 5,000 documents and all that, I'm like, oh, I already did that. Yeah, I did that and I did that, and then it's just like, what's holding me back? Just to put it out in the world. I mean, just finish the darn thing. Move on. So of course you can think like, and then so that's why I can't do it, and then it's like, oh, it's perfectionism. It's like it's not good enough. There's a million reasons why I
and we will use this map to see if we can get more data on this.
Okay.
But what's your goal? What would you like to be better at, or do more or less of, or what's the goal? Not the outcome.
No, I think the goal is to, like many of my colleagues and my friends, I mean, we have this, if it's not 100%, it's not good enough, which is like, it's really working on that 80% is actually good enough. It's not like just something I would tell that. I mean, if you work with me, I would say, like, oh, this is more than good enough. But then the standards towards me are different because I know I can do better. So I think that's probably I would be better off just it's good enough.
Yeah, it's good enough. Some of what you say also fits in the map for like why you're doing all this stuff. But if we stay with your goal for a little bit more, if you should phrase it, not like an outcome, so not like putting this out and having this great onboarding system good enough for whatever out there, what would be your goal? What do you want to achieve?
I want to achieve that when I sit down and work with something and then actually kind of finished, to stop looking for all the little things that is hindering me in actually being done. Like, now everything is done, but I don't really know how this technical thing, I should find a better payment system, or I should find a better way to communicate with the people who buys this program. It's like I find out a million things that is keeping, it's all the little things I don't know exactly how to do that keeps me, then I don't have to, then I can wait, I can postpone it.
Yeah, so that's some of the behavior.
Gosh,
right?
now I just realized I have a lot of other things in the same category.
Oh, we all do. we all do. So I hear two things. I hear that you really want to be with happy, what's good enough to get moving. So there's something there that you really want to experience being, what you said, it's good enough. I'm done and I can move on. So it's something like finishing things when they're done and not like wasting all the time for the last few.
You are spot on. It's finishing projects so there's room and time to go on to next. Not time, because there's more than enough time. It's more that mental capacity that I can move on. I actually closing something so I can keep going.
Yeah. So and since I know you a bit, I know you have many things you want to do, and I think this is really important. Like playing a bit with the words in this column 1. If your listeners have downloaded this map,
and pause the podcast now and download this little PDF.
Yeah, we really recommend that. And in column 1, it's important to play with the words so you come closer to what you really, really want. And it should be important to you. Like if you have like a 5-star scale, it should be at least a 4 or 5, something that would really, really mean a lot to you. And it should also implicate you and not everybody else.
I would like to become better at finishing my project and say it's more than good enough. Okay, should I write this down?
Yeah, please write it down. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I think also just a quick comment in the example you used. I think after this podcast, you could probably also write down a goal, because I heard something around you really want the new practitioners at your clinic to have a great first year. Right? That's why you made it.
I want my practitioners. I want all practitioners.
Yeah, and that's also something, because that's why you would do all this work in these 5,000 pages and whatever you have, like start up.
Yeah, that's definitely going. It's not about me finishing. It's about them having tools that I didn't have.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, and I think that's also, because that's why it's so important to not get distracted in what you're doing or not, but just like spending a bit of time to just feel into, if I did this is what would happen, and really feel maybe also in your gut that if I was to accomplish this, maybe for you both these things, what would that leave me with? How would life be different? And so I'm asking you, when you look at your goals here, what you've written, what would be different for you if you were able to implement these changes?
If I would be able to implement this, I really think it would change how everyone would practice. And it would make everybody easy. I mean, I really have a burning love for people or practitioners who wants to work with something they love, like helping people to live better lives and to succeed fast.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people out there who needs good hands or help for their aches and pains. And there's it's so many people who don't get help, and there's so many amazing practitioners who are unable to help them because they don't know all the other stuff that you need. It's not like they're really good from school. They know everything. They have all the techniques. They have all the stuff. They have the diagnosis. They just don't have the system to make it a nice life past.
So what I hear is that this is super important for you.
Yeah.
So would you rate it like a 4 or 5
5
star?
for sure.
For sure, yeah. So it's really important.
Yeah.
And then also back to the willpower thing we talked about. This is not about willpower, but it is really important that this goal is something that would change something for you. Because of course, you will be more internally motivated to do something about it. And that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to move on to the second column in this map. And the thing that is important now is that we're going to try to find all your behavior or the things you do or you don't do in order to achieve this goal.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know the laughter from anxiety and that this is going to be, it might be painful, but what's important now is we're going to stick with the behaviors.
Okay.
And behavior as in also what you don't do, because that's also behavior. We are not going to have conversations about why you're doing this. We are just collecting. We are collecting data. What are you doing or doing instead of achieving this goal? Yeah. Come on.
Well, I spend hours researching the best online platform I have done them all.
Yeah.
I know how to use all of them. So extensive research.
And never-ending
research.
Yeah.
And also I get hung up when I get technical issues. Like this morning, I spent an hour and a half trying to get my camera to work to record my screen. I would have probably, if I didn't have a meeting with you, I would still be sitting in my computer trying to resolve it instead of calling someone who can pay to help me fix this, because this is insane.
Yeah. Great. What else?
What else? I don't trust. I switch my focus constantly to see how can I make it even better.
Yeah. So constantly searching for.
I have a perfect outline. It's more than good enough. I keep making new outlines.
Yeah. So you're repeating your work and trying to make it even better.
Yeah, make it better. And that's making that I'm not moving on. I'm just circling, and I just leave the computer like, oh, now I'm definitely not motivated.
What else are you doing or maybe not doing in order to serve your change?
I am procrastinating because when I don't get to do this, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do just something else instead.
Yeah.
I can finish this instead.
Yeah. So not providing or using time to work for your goal, but just doing nothing. Or doing something else.
Yeah.
This is really great. And what's important here in column 2, in addition to like listing the things you do or don't do, it's like honesty is your friend here, right? You're getting nowhere if we're not totally honest with ourselves. So really to try to find all the things you do and not do that are linked to you feeling stuck or not moving forward is really important.
And also I try to do too many things too extensive instead of just keep it simple.
Yeah,
because it's what I want to do. I start with the intention, keep this simple, and I end up not doing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what you outline here is the gap, and that's also why they call this immunity to change immunity gap process, right? Because you are now identifying the gap between what you really long for. What your goals, like you want to be able to move on, do things, get things completed, move on, and free time to do more of all the important stuff you want to do, and also to help the practitioner have a really good business. And you're identifying a gap that your behavior doesn't support what you're changing, and that's exactly where you want to be. What I would like you to take a second to reflect on, when you see the list of this behaviors, the things you do or you don't.
Just give me 1 second so I can write it down.
Yeah,
so I don't
please.
forget it.
Yeah, please do. When you look at this list, how do you feel?
Really?
Yeah.
I thought I was better than that.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah.
This is what I work with in other things every day.
Yeah.
And I can't even do it myself.
No.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And thank you for being so honest, because that's often how we feel. And this feeling, when we have the notion of this in our everyday life, we would either just try to ignore it, not go there, not look at it, or try to fix it super fast. And I think that's the challenge in this process. After like listing up all these things that you do and don't do, you want to run away and try to fix them and do something else. The process is inviting you to just stay with the process. Trust the process, we often say as coaches. So we will not yet go there to what you can do differently.
Okay.
We will...
Because that's also where everyone is. Why can't you just do this?
Yeah. And it's often down to willpower again. Yeah. Now that you see this and you know that this works again, what you really want, can't you just change it? So there's an invitation now to just stay with it. We have listed the behavior and we will move on to the third phase and the third column in this process. And now we are going to see what kind of commitments are you holding, often hidden for you in your conscious mind? What kind of commitments... What things do you believe to be true about you that makes the behavior you just listed to make perfect sense? Because you do this for a reason. There's something you've been doing for many years that keeps you in this space, and that's where we're going now. And to help you to get there, what kind of fears or worries are coming up for you? If you are thinking, I won't do those behaviors anymore, I will just be really, really working on my goals and succeeding in implementing these changes that I want, what kind of fears would come up for you there?
Well, the first one is pretty easy. It's a failure. Everybody hates it. Or nobody even is interested. Like, I spent all this time and it's just like, you were completely wrong. It was a failure. Yeah. Why did you? And also, gosh, I wasted all these things on something I knew, and it was just completely worthless.
Yeah.
Thought I knew something, and I didn't.
Yeah, that was fast. yeah. And I can hear, since you do it so fast, and I can hear it in your voice that this is familiar territory for you.
Familiar.
Yeah, super familiar. So if we should phrase this worry, if we should phrase this as a commitment, what does that mean that you are committed to?
I'm committed to trust that the things I think are hard and I experience through all these years of working with other therapists and also working with myself is super valuable to share. And some people may already know this, do this, and a lot of people don't because they don't know it yet. And something...
I will just pause you there because it might be me asking, not the correct answer here, because what you're saying now really builds on what you really want to work on. And I will help you, because this is kind of a trick, and it's actually very good that you did it, because it'd be easier for the listeners to understand what we're looking for. So if I can just, from what you're saying as words, I will just try, and you can see if the word lands. I think you are committed to be seen as super smart, super experienced. And that's the hidden, because if you are committed to be seen as a super smart, failure would be a danger, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we are looking for, not the super fantastic goals for column 1, but the more hidden, maybe not so noble or more shameful commitments.
So it's more the kind of imposter syndrome.
That would be one very common hidden commitment. I don't want to be a failure.
Yeah, because then it's like you are completely naked and see that you really don't know anything.
Yeah.
You should know better.
Right. So would that be, what kind of words would you use if you should say it for yourself? So I'm committed to be...
I am committed to hold myself to super high standards, because I know that I'm smart enough and I should know better, and I'm this hardworking person who should do things well, or else you are wasting your gifts and wasting your life away. And I guess I'm committed not to wasting my life away.
Yeah. That's great. And now you can start to see, and this is also why they call it a map. Now you can see why it makes perfect sense that you would postpone things. You would use endless hours and times and months and years on making things perfect, because you have a commitment to be seen as super smart and super experienced, and your high standards, you have to meet them in order to put something out there. Then it kind of makes perfect sense, because when you're putting things out there, you lose control, right? You can't be sure how things land, you know? You can't be sure that you meet what people need all the time. So it's kind of this self-protecting immune system, and that's what the immune system do. That's what your body do with your immune system. It's keeping you safe from what's perceived as a danger. And that's exactly the same we do psychologically. Things that you have learned is a risk or could be dangerous for you, you keep away from it.
And I think I just had a little aha moment here. I think the big difference between this thing and all the other things I do and jump in, this is different because this is something I have put together myself. It's not about knowledge than, you know, like starting a clinic or start administration. So this is much more personal in a way, because this is what I think. It's new stuff. It's not the thing that I can just check out in the book. It's like if you have 3 children, it's like, okay, I do this and this. If you're a good chiropractor, you do this and this. This is all the stuff that hasn't been collected in the way I collected first. Maybe that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And what I hear is that this is very personal for you.
Yeah.
For this
I think that's it.
You.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense that this is more important for you, and also evokes more anxiety.
Yeah, it's more on the line.
It's more.
Because then you're really naked. It's like, oh, this is it.
Yes, it's more.
You're not better than that.
No, right. So of course it creates all this worry and fear. And that's also because our brain, together with the immune system, one of the biggest jobs is to keep you alive, also like socially and psychologically. So we would make up and predict and have stories around what could go wrong. And that could be so intense that it really keeps us stuck, even though we don't know about it consciously. And I think that what I love about this method is that even not going down too much and talking about how you feel, it's just like a step-for-step process that shows you where is your break.
And I can also do this by myself. I don't need a coach doing this. No. This is just filling out. If I've done it, learn how to do it once, I can do this with all my little problems.
Sure, you can do it. It's a method you can use. And then I would say it could be really hard to do it on your own for the first time.
But I'm super excited. What about the next?
Yeah, I can see. And now you actually jump. Now you're actually jumping, and I'm going to invite you for a few more minutes to not go into the fixing mode. I'm sorry. I know you're very eager to fix it. We're going to do the last column. That's called the big assumption. And that's an invitation to see, what does this mean? This you just described in column 3. Your commitment to being super smart and deliver stuff with super high standards and everything. What does this say about what you think about yourself? And it could be a good tips if somebody else told you this, just to create some distance for you. If somebody else said this, what would you think they thought about themselves?
One more time, so I am sure I make it.
So what do you have to really believe? What's your big assumptions about you in order to have these thoughts that you have in column 3?
Well, I think it's obvious that I don't think I'm good enough.
Right? Yeah.
I mean,
so that's a big assumption. And if you're not good enough, what's your fear? If people discover that you're not good enough, or you do something, you fail, what are you really, really afraid would happen?
Well, if you're not good
Technical
enough,
issues now. We have to stop recording.
Actually, now we have some recording issues. We also stop for the commercials. Well, I mean, if you're not good enough, what are you worthy of?
Yeah, right.
What's your worth?
Yeah. And if you're not worthy, what could happen?
Ooh, then everything could just, your whole, the ground could fall down. And then you could, how could that, what would that, maybe, how would that destroy your self-confidence and feelings of self-worth?
And there's something that comes up for me when you talk, and I have the pleasure also looking at your expression, and you're looking out of the window,
thinking, yeah.
And it sounds kind of lonely.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a grey day here in Oslo. So
Yes.
it's a grey kind of lonely, dark place.
Yeah.
Super boring.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah. And you don't do sad, do you?
We don't do sad.
No, that's not something you want. I think this is, thank you for being so honest. And I think the importance of column 4 is like try to see what does that really tell me about how I look at myself. Because the stories we tell ourselves also creates our world. So it would be, now that you're telling me what you found in column 4, is like, well, if you're really afraid and worried that you're going to end up in like shadowland and grey and all by yourself lonely, it kind of makes perfect sense that you have commitments and you drive yourself to not doing the things that really could be dangerous or risky. Right? Mm-hmm. Like putting your personal work out there in the fear of being rejected. It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense. And then, then my educated brain is like, how the heck would this really make anything? It's like, even though that's fails, it's not going to make me more lonely. It made me a little bit wounded myself feeling, but I don't think my friends or family or colleague would leave me. They wouldn't even know. They wouldn't even notice. They wouldn't even know, oh yeah, she did something again. I don't know, she does all these things. So it really wouldn't matter.
No, and I think it's what's so cool with this process, because now we're moving to what's outside of this map. It's trying for you to test out these assumptions. Is this really true? That if I don't do this and that I will
happen.
Yeah, and what's so cool is what you just did now, because you're reflecting back and you see you already have tested this. Your rational brain knows that this isn't always true. Of course, we have the immune system, so something for us is super dangerous. And it's not like you should never be afraid of anything new. It's more for you to collect data so you would be able to do the things you really want to do with and for your life. And not being stuck. And you have the great testers from your past, because you say, and you have done many things that you know that your friends haven't left you. If I ask you, like, going forward, like having this immunity map now more in the clear, out of the gray, dark area more, you see it more clearly, what would be an okay test for you, like for the next month? Something you can do to even build on this new assumption that I'm worthy, even though not everything is perfect.
I don't know. Could you give me an example? So
this would be not in the fixing mode, but in like testing, like, well, I have this work, it's almost done, I think it's good enough, I will put it out there and then I will see how that lands with people. And I don't know what project you would finish.
Well, I mean, I can just finish the stuff I have. Yeah. I mean, it's there. Everything is there.
Yeah. Are you now talking for the onboarding for the new practitioner stuff, or it's something else that comes to mind?
No, I mean, that's just one of them. But then, I mean, there are more things here.
Yeah. So the things here is, and now you have already mentioned that you have experienced, and
so there's maybe I make a list of the things that I need to move forward on. So I move it on with my life.
Yeah, and the thing here is, this is the implementation of the change, because you have already experienced that you do other stuff and just being stuck. So you like when you just saw your map, you could easily see that this isn't completely true. I've already
and also I guess it's something about letting go. I guess that's the thing. It's hard to let go. Let's just let go.
Yeah, let go what?
I think maybe let go. I mean, that could be a lot of things. Like it's hard to let go.
Yeah, it could be.
It's lack. You are. I'm afraid if I let go, will be something missing.
Sure. And I think that also, like, it's in the hidden commitments, because like you say, you could already see that there were many things that at play are at stake here. And of course, if you work through this process many times, you will see
more things. So when I can do this by myself afterwards, and like I can do something, and then I will find
probably
a lot of things about letting go.
Probably that's normal. But what I would like to say, that you might also, for the listeners, you might experience that you go through this and you all of a sudden see something you never seen before, right? You get like, because that I've experienced it also for myself and people I worked with, that then when they go through this and they see, I had no idea that it was this big assumption that really drove me to do things or not do things in column 2 that's competing with my goal. And what I would invite is to still not go in fixing modus.
Okay.
The important stuff here is to try to test stuff. To test if what you hold as assumptions.
If I let go of something, or like I guess the thing that stuck with me, it's loneliness, the fear of being alone.
Right. To have a test to see if I do this, will everyone leave me if I do this? Right. And what we hold here is, it might be true in some cases. It's not like you've done this and it's completely stupid, everything you've done to protect yourself. It might be something you needed to do growing up to self-protect yourself, to self-protect you. It might still be something that is important to take into consideration when you're going forward. So it's not like you should just throw out everything you found in this map and be a completely different human being. The thing here is to get data.
So if I'm aware of it, it's easier to work with.
Yeah, and if you're aware and you get data, I do this. Did I get pushback from my friends? Didn't they want to come to the yearly New Year's Eve celebration, whatever? You're trying to test to get more data. Because if you get more data and you over time understand that this assumption, this hidden commitment that I hold for myself, they are not completely true. You can create new stories. That you can be, I can be super smart and experienced and blah, 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 and still be okay with things being good enough, right? Both can be true at the same time.
So if we try to wrap up a little bit.
Yes.
What advice would you give our listeners about where to start when they see they have changes they want to do and they can't do that?
This is a great question. and you know, as a coach, when I get asked to give advice,
we need to have always some advice.
I know, and I don't like to give advice. Well, but I will do it since I accepted this invitation to be on their podcast. I think you should really try for yourself. I think you should really download this map. I've put in some instructions on how you should fill out every column in this map, so it should be easier for the listeners to do this for themselves. And of course, I also advise people who are feeling really stuck and are thinking about changes they really want to do for themselves, they have been able to do, to get a coach or talk to somebody who can really provide them with some guidance through this process. To really spend time at it in the first column, like we did, to really find the goal, not the outcome, but to really, really find an important goal as something that would make a difference for you. And I think to spend time there, because as soon as that lands and you can feel in your stomach that, this is super important, I think you are more motivated to bring your friend honesty into the process to really make it work. And then try to test your assumptions and get more data, what's true or not.
So then I would also give an advice on that note. We have, of course, a lot of smart colleagues out there who are working with other really great people who work not as coaches, but I mean, that's basically when we work with patients, it's kind of we're kind of hidden coaches.
Sure.
And maybe listen to this episode together or read more and then try to do this in the same room and work with it and talk about it and maybe help each other through the first process.
I think that's a great advice. Yeah. And I think also in the notes for this podcast episode, we will name the researchers behind this method.
And then you can read the book.
You can read the book, and there's podcasts out there addition to this one. So if you Google it, you will find a lot of stuff if you're curious.
And use the ChatGPT. That's like, what is immunity change and how can you use it?
Or reach out to you or to me if they're curious to know more.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Ibe. It was lovely. If I should summarize it, it's a lot to summarize, but I think these tools may make it easier to see the behavior, why it's so hard to change, and that change is not to do always with willpower. It's about some beliefs, hidden beliefs and hidden commitments that we need to bring out in the open so we can move forward and live better, more satisfied lives.
That's beautiful. Thank you.